Hey y'all, today we're going to talk about creating a style sheet. So a style sheet is essentially a cheat sheet of fonts, sizes, and guidelines for every page of your yearbook. So once you've decided on a theme, it's important that every staff member is on the same page about the elements of their spread. So maybe you've limited your staff to 3 fonts, but on one page the headline is really tiny, and on another it's half the page. So these kind of inconsistencies can confuse your reader and compromise your design. As an advisor in Encore, you can actually set these font parameters in your book setup wizard. So I'll get into the details of that at the end of this video, so hang with me or just skip to the end if you want to see that. In my year, StudioWorks, InDesign, or if you aren't a Balfour customer, so you're using a different yearbook software, you don't have the luxury of that book setup feature. So I'm going to show you how to create a style sheet that's actually in your yearbook software so that you can have that for your students. If you are going through this as a class activity, which I would encourage, this is another opportunity for your students to see those tools in their yearbook software in action. So we talked about narrowing down your font options in the storyboarding a theme video, which I'll link in the description. So here we're going to determine the sizing and the effects of those fonts. So let me share my screen with you guys. Okay, so I'm in Encore. I'm going to go open up a page, and first I'm going to work with my Decorative Font. Here's where we're going, guys, if you wanted the roadmap. So let's say I go ahead and I make that division page or that headline box. So this is the biggest font first. I'm gonna say that I want Stafford, that's fine. Let's say font size 150, align it to the middle. Let's fill it with white. Let's give it a 5-point stroke around every letter in some fun color. And then this is where you would also decide, do you want everything lowercase? Do you want everything uppercase? Do you want to do traditional capitalization? Those sorts of things. So again, if you're having a group discussion, you can talk about that as a class. Let's say I'm going to do all caps. Punctuation as well. Do you punctuate? Are we not going to worry about that? It just depends on what look you're going for. And then let's say we want to rotate this every time we use it. This would be good for like a division page, which I think is why I practiced using the word division, because you wouldn't want a headline this big and dramatic on every page of your yearbook. But then this is what makes it a cheat sheet. So I had already turned this. Let me turn it around for you guys. I just make a plain little text box that goes with each element that's on the page that says exactly all of the ingredients that I use to get that effect. So it says we use Stafford 150 point filled with white, any color stroke, so you can tell your kids, I want all of these to be blue. Every time we see it, it needs to be blue. Or hey, have some creative freedom here. You can make it whatever color you want. I said that the stroke was 5 points. We do all caps with punctuation and rotated 90 degrees, either direction, as long as it's going up and down the page vertically. So I gave them the cheat sheet of what to do for every division page headline. So then it was the same thing here. I did the headline for a story on a regular page. Any solid color that you want, down style, which means first letter capitalized, everything else is not. Nothing about punctuation here, so we know that we don't have to do that. Then I would go ahead and do a sub headline as well. Let me move all of this over. Did a sub headline, our body copy. So body copy is an article or a story, could also be a Q&A, any kind of bulky text package. And then this is very important. So I did a demo of a caption here. And I did the photo credit in italics. So every time that I see a caption, I want them to give the photographer credit at the end of that caption. I want it to be in italics, and it'll be first initial, last name. You could also do just their full name if that's your jam. Doesn't really matter how you want to attribute that, as long as you give them an example so that it's the same across the book. Same here with like a photo identifier. So this is when you don't have room for a caption and you just want to say who's in the picture and what grade they're in. Usually it's very tiny. I think this is 6-point font. Let's see. 8-point, but still. So it's pretty small. And again, you could do first initial, last name. You could put a 7. I've seen people do a 7 in parentheses. I've seen 7. So however you want to put that grade information, just be sure you include it on your style sheet. And then same thing, my folio is turned off right now, but if you do page attribution, like whoever worked on that page and designed it gets to have a little credit byline in your folio. Go ahead and show how big that would be. Same thing, is it their full name, is it their initials, and have that demonstrated there. Also any graphics, let's say like on our folio, we're gonna do like a little rewind button because it goes with our theme. You would want to include that here as well. And then last, any modules or verbal phrases that you might use over and over again. So the great thing about having your module here is that whenever someone needs to grab it and reuse it on their page, they can just select this whole object, copy it, and then go back to their page and just paste it on, and it's going to be the exact same placement and the same fonts and sizes and everything for you. So once you get your whole style sheet mocked up, you'll come over here and hit preview and print. And then you can actually print it out single pages, so if you don't want to include those modules on every printout, you don't have to. I would just print the font information. You'll notice I went back in here a second ago and filled in this story copy. There is stuff in here. This is a story. If you have it filled with placeholder text, it won't show up on the preview. And also, if you don't have a little picture in these text boxes, then they will just disappear and you'll have weird spaces. So I filled those in, you don't have to. So once you print this out, if you are working in a computer lab and you have like old school computers with a tower, you can tape this cheat sheet to every computer tower for quick reference, or if you're working with laptops, maybe just one at every little station. You could also just download this instead of printing it out. Let me scroll all the way up. You can download it right here, and then you can put it in your Google Drive for your class so that y'all can look at it. Personally, I would like come up here and save this as its own template so that if I ever needed to grab it again, I could. And then I could clear this page and actually have kids start working in the book and building their pages. But you'll want to make sure that your editor goes through or someone goes through in that proofreading process and it just checks everything against the style guide to make sure that it came out accurately. So I'm going to get into the book setup stuff. For people who are actually working in Encore, this saves you so much time. So you can come up to this little wheel, actually this menu, and say launch book settings. Also, just right when you log into Encore, you get those 4 tiles. So this is in customized page properties. And this is an advisor only feature, so your kids do not have this. But you'll see instead of making my own text boxes, it's kind of giving me a preview of all those things already. So fonts, default, we'll go through changing the font style is what we call it. The default font is what your little portraits are. Oh, actually, no, we've updated that. That's not what your portraits are going to flow in. This is just when you draw a text box and start typing. That's your default. So it's showing me everything else is grayed out except for this one. This is my default font, Stafford. That's fine. Headline, I've got Canvas Script. Subheadline, Olympia. This is not necessarily what I would recommend. This is just like a nice little example. So I can come through here and set my fonts in book setup, see how they look together, make sure I like it. You can also adjust your color palette in here if you want to and see a little preview like this without drawing all those squares. So now when I go to drop a template into my book, it's going to show me a preview. And maybe I don't want this exact font. So when I go to add it to the page, it's going to ask me, do you want to use what you saw in the template preview, or do you want to use the fonts that you set up in your project? So I'm going to say use my project default, and it should change that headline to Canvas Script 72 point. So it saves you that step. You'll see 72 points was a little bit too big for this text box, so I got to stretch it out. And there it is. It went to Canvas Script. And since it was in all caps on that template preview, it went to all caps there as well. So I would just update that. Another way to do it is, let's say you're not working on a template, you built a page from scratch. So you can come into properties and under font where it says font style or paragraph style, excuse me, instead of headline, let's say this is my subhead. So it automatically updated me to that Olympia. So it changes the font and the font size at once for you. Okay guys, again, just be sure you're proofreading that stuff really well before you send it off to print, and happy designing, guys. I hope this helps you make a beautiful and consistent yearbook.